I recently found my kilowatt meter was not working when plugged in. I'm thinking it may have gotten a larger burst of power than it's rated for and burned out something inside. I'll open it up and do some troubleshooting next. After working on many modern electronic devices over the years that all have some trick to opening them up, it's nice to have a device that just opens after removing the screws. Now that I have it open, I want to look for obvious signs of damage like black burn marks on the circuit board, a disconnected component or cable, or corrosion. Both boards look to be in really good condition. I'll check both sides to be sure. I'm hoping I see something obvious, but it's not looking good at this point. Something else I can check are if any fuses are blown. I found 2 of them, so I'll check them both for continuity. If the fuse is blown, electricity won't flow through it, so there won't be any continuity when tested. The multimeter is beeping, so this one is okay. I didn't realize this second component was a fuse. I'd never seen one like this before, but luckily it says fuse right on the side of it. I also tested this one, and this one seems to be the culprit. There's no beeping when tested. I confirmed the probes are working by touching them together, then retested the fuse. I found replacement fuses on Amazon and eBay. Amazon was out of stock, but it was nice to see comments from people stating they're getting this fuse to repair their kilowatt, so at least I know this is the correct part. I ended up getting this one listed here on eBay. I received the replacement fuses and can now finish up what I'm thinking should be a quick repair. My plan is simple. I'll cut the old fuse off, leaving most of the lead wires from the old fuse still soldered into the board. I'll then solder the new fuse onto the protruding wire, which I feel is easier than attempting to solder it to the pad on the board. Here's a time-lapse of the steps I followed for removing the old fuse and soldering the new one in place. As mentioned, I'll cut the old fuse off, leaving some of the leads to resolder the new fuse to. I'll have to also remove a portion of the leads from the new fuse so everything will fit together correctly. Clamping the leads together for soldering was a bit of a challenge, but once I got one side clamped in place, I soldered that side, then moved the clamp to the other side to then solder that side. My solder work isn't the greatest, but since it's for myself, I'm okay as long as it looks reasonably safe for use. To make sure the solder work was done properly, I wanted to test for continuity. I was surprised to find that there was no continuity through the new fuse. I tested other components on the circuit board and they weren't working either, so I thought maybe the multimeter was acting up. To test the kilowatt in use, I plugged it into an AC outlet where it should power on the display. Again, I was surprised to find it's still not working. I'm realizing this new fuse might be temperature sensitive as opposed to an electrically sensitive one. It was probably triggered by the heat from the soldering, which turned it into a burnt fuse before I had a chance to use it. I'm going to solder another new fuse, but this time I'm going to start out by first testing the fuse for continuity before I begin soldering. This will confirm the fuse is a working one before it's used in the repair. With this new fuse, I left the length of the fuse leads at its original length so the heat would have more wire to pass through. I also wrapped the fuse in a wet napkin to control overheating in that area. Now that the soldering is done, I want to immediately test for continuity before I do anything else. I'm hoping the measures I took to prevent burning out the new fuse worked. Here's a look at the new fuse soldered in place. Because the leads were so long, I had to bend it back around within the small space the fuse has within the case. I'll reassemble the kilowatt, being careful everything will fit back into the case without damaging the modified fuse leads. There's just enough room for the fuse, so luckily bending it worked out. Once again, I plugged it into the AC outlet and was happy to see that the display panel lit up like it usually does, initially displaying 121 volts. I tested other features and the kilowatt seems to be working as expected. I'm really glad to have this device working again because it is a very useful tool. I don't know which electronic devices burnt out the fuse on my kilowatt, but I'm thinking the last 2 devices I used it on were a laptop and a 5-gallon water heater. If anything, I'll make it a point not to use it on those devices anymore. I hope this video can be helpful to some of you out there. Leave any questions or comments you have in the comment section down below. That's all I have for now, and I'll catch you in the next video.